It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and this is Postcards from the Pandemic.
Five
Cheers.
o'clock here.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
That's right. It's actually 5 o'clock right now. It's technically 5:02 while we're recording this. But we continue in a great vein. The last episode was the Gill family. We did a family edition of Postcards from the Pandemic. But Johnny, we like fabulous women.
We do like fabulous women. This is true.
So when are you
That
going
are
to
smarter
invite
than we
one
are.
on?
Right now.
Yes, yeah, yesterday.
Johnny, you want to do the introduction?
I will, everybody. I'd like you to meet Claire Glynn. So I'm not going to do a big introduction here because I met Claire Glynn because I know a lot of Irish people in New Haven, a lot of Irish immigrants who have become very good friends of mine. Some of them hang out at a place called the Trinity, owned by Shane and Eddie. My good friend Mikey Byrne works there, a number of other people. So I just met Claire as, one of this group of Irish friends. But in preparation for this, because I knew she taught at UNH, I looked her up. And now I've realized that we've invited somebody on who is way, way smarter than we are.
Oh,
Claire,
yeah.
I'll let her explain what it is, because a person's really smart when you read their bio and you know most of the words, but you don't really know what they mean. A PhD in molecular biology, like
yes, welcome. And I have to jump into the intro. I also am at the University of New Haven. I'm a professional in residence, and I run the radio station WNHU. But Claire on campus is a rock star. Yes. Claire,
Right.
Welcome to Postcards from the Pandemic.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. Well, Bruce, do you remember the first time I met you? I think we were put on a committee together, the United Way Planning Committee.
That's
and I
exactly
was like,
right.
Who's this guy? He's so energetic and charismatic. I was like, I need to know this guy. And I remember thinking, he should be on the radio. And then I was like, oh, he is. Okay.
Yes,
Claire,
I'm a
when we don't
washed
have
up shock jock.
When we don't have the academic credentials, we just try to talk a lot and sound energetic. It's how we kind of get by. It's a coping mechanism more than anything.
It's amazing what being energetic will gloss over. Yeah, so Claire, describe a little bit about, it's amazing. Yeah, like molecular biology. And I guess you should just tell us your story, like, how you came to America, how you came to the University of New Haven.
Well, I'm here. I suppose this is my 6th year now. I came in 2014. And it was one of those things that just wasn't planned whatsoever. I had always loved America. I grew up watching Saved by the Bell and, Gossip
It's really
Girl.
like that here.
I loved, Zach was my boy, but I, then as a teenager, I watched Gossip Girl and Friends and Sex and the City. And I was like, I'm definitely going to go, and I'm going to be Carrie Bradshaw in New York City, and I'm going to, bring all my shoes with me and everything like that. But, as I started getting into my education, and I lived in Oxford in England for a while, working as a forensic scientist, I went back to Ireland then and did my PhD, as Johnny said a little bit ago, in molecular biology, molecular profiling essentially of cancer. And as I was coming towards the end of my PhD, so kind of imagine January 2014, I was like, okay, my PhD is coming to an end. What's the next step? What am I going to do? I'm going to wrap this up in 9 months to a year. What am I going to do after that? And I wanted to get back into the world of forensic science because that was my true passion. It was, what made my blood pump faster. And so I started looking online, and obviously the whole world knows about Dr. Henry C. Lee, the world's most famous forensic scientist. And I saw that there was a job opening for an instructor at the University of New Haven in forensic science. And I remember the day very clearly. It was early January 2014. And I said, all right, I'll submit my CV, and they probably won't even get back to me. They don't want someone from Ireland, they'll be like, who's this girl, And within 2 hours, they got back to me and they were like, when can we interview you? So I was like, okay, I gotta get prepared. And so then as I was finishing my PhD, essentially, they were like, you're overqualified for an instructor position. Would you consider an assistant professorship? And I thought, yeah, I absolutely would. So then you go through like, you know, a variety of kind of Skype interviews and phone interviews and things like that. And then it was May. And actually on my 30th birthday, they flew me over to New Haven, Connecticut for my interview. And they, you know, showed me around for a few days, met everyone that was involved, you know, in the university. And I just fell in love with the place. The minute I walked onto the campus, I was like, this is just like it is on TV, like all the American universities.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. The University of New Haven just rocks. I'm the same way. I just love it there.
I love the buzz, you know, and
Yeah.
everything is like really immaculate, and all the students are full of all this school spirit and things like that. So I was really wowed by the place. And so I flew home. I think it was like I got home on a Saturday, and on the Sunday they called me and they said, the job is yours. Will you take it? And I was like, whoa, okay. All right, I will. And then immediately I had to go to my PhD supervisor and I was like, so I've accepted a job in America and it starts in August. So I need to wrap this stuff up. You know?
Oh, that is so great. I mean, we are so lucky to have you. Yeah.
My city, New Haven, is lucky to have you, Claire. We're happy that you made it.
Thank you. Well, it's just, you know, since the moment I arrived, everyone has just been so welcoming. And I think, you know, my favorite part of New Haven is the community aspect. Mm-hmm. And it's the minute you walk downtown, the minute you see Trinity or Christie's or Christopher Martin's, all the great pubs, you know, everyone's so welcoming. I was really quite scared at first, I have to say, because first of all, New Haven, Connecticut, that's not really where a huge amount of Irish people emigrate to. We usually go to Boston, New York, Chicago, those kind of places. And I literally didn't know a soul, not a single person in the whole of New Haven or the whole of Connecticut. And so whenever I landed, my friend who lives back in Ireland at the moment, he had said we were big Arsenal supporter fans, Arsenal Football Club. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, oh, I looked it up. Christie's is the Arsenal supporters pub there. And I was like, wow, I live like 2 blocks from there. Okay. So I went down by myself and walked in and was like, okay, this looks like home. Yeah, there's all the flags, all the county flags all over the ceiling and everything. And sat down at the bar, started talking to the barman, who was a lovely lad from Sligo. And it just took off from there. You were part of the community, you know, and it was so welcoming and so nice that everyone was, you know, accommodating and wondering where you're from and how they can help you. I remember even that bartender was like, you don't have a car? And I was like, no, I can't get a license for like 6 months. It sucks. And he was like, oh, well, if you ever need to go grocery shopping, I'll bring you. And, you know, so you don't have to carry all those groceries home. And I was like, wow, this is really unusual or, you know, extraordinary kind of behavior to welcome a new person to this community.
So, I mean, you know, we've seen as a longtime New Haven guy, you know, just loads of great people come through here associated with universities of some sort. And everybody does become your friend. You know, we kind of welcome everybody in. We're in the northeast part of America where people supposedly aren't that friendly, but everybody seems to find their niche here and, you know, and get along with us. So it's just, you know, I've heard a story, somebody say it once is, you know, I moved to New York and my barman was my barman. I moved to New Haven and my barman was my best friend. You know, like it's just a different community in a way people kind of take it in. So
yeah, and I'd like to say, you know, New Haven is really they should have set Sex in the City in New Haven. I mean, really is.
I do want to find out if everything lived up
with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I have the shoe closet upstairs. Don't worry.
Bruce, I'm going to give you your usual little prod into question number 1 here.
Okay, yeah. So we like to kick off these postcards, Claire, with the question: what were you doing when you realized this pandemic was for real? What was your life then, and how has it changed?
So I actually went to Ireland on February 25th, for my best friend's wedding at home. And so it was February 25th to March 3rd was my flight to go home. And so I went on the flight. I remember taking a couple of masks from work because I was like, there's something going on at the moment. We need to like kind of, prepare and protect ourselves. Brought the masks with me to the airport, but nobody else was wearing them. So I didn't wear one because I didn't want to like freak people out and make them think I was sick. And then I was in Ireland for 5 days and flew back on March 3rd. And whenever we came back, I realized, okay, this is a lot more serious, or it's progressing a lot more quickly than I thought it was going to. And I was like, we're lucky we came back when we did, because if we had been, even just a couple of days more in Ireland, I think we would have been stuck there. So that wouldn't have been good. Then, from a work perspective, it was a Monday, I think Monday the 8th, maybe it was. And I often go to Eli's on the Boston Post Road with a couple of coworkers every Monday for some nachos and some happy hour cocktails. And we were both sitting there, my friend, a colleague of mine, Sarah, we were both sitting there and our phones both binged at the exact same time. And we opened them up to see what this email was, and it was from the university, and it was all classes moved online as of 6 p.m. today. And we both looked at each other and we were like, holy moly, okay. And then it was, right, finish the drink, eat up the nachos, and let's get out of here, because I knew I needed to get home straight away and contact my students, because I have classes Tuesday morning at 9:25.
Wow.
So I was like, I need to get on to them straight away and give them instructions of what to do, where we're going to have class in terms of, is it going to be on Zoom? Is it going to be on Blackboard? And basically I was thinking straight away, how are we going to adapt to this? And is this going to be a short-term thing or a long-term thing? Within a week, I kind of realized this is long-term. This is going to be the remainder of the semester. So I'm going to need to adapt my courses, my work schedule, how I interact with my students, all those kind of things pretty quickly, and find the methods that work best pretty quickly as well.
And I'm interested in how that's going, because I'm lucky. All I was teaching were 2 independent studies. The bulk of my work is running the radio station and doing admissions events and whatnot. So that's been actually great for me, because Zoom is terrific for that, and I let my students kind of design their course of study. One was a young woman who was doing something about, actually before, she was doing it about politics and young people and what's important to them. And we pivoted to COVID-19. And she did this great series of podcasts. And the other one was a student who was designing a professional music rotation for WNHU. And so it was great. I got to loop him in with some broadcast professionals I know on Zoom. So in a way, the independent study became even better. But I have such admiration for faculty such as yourself that had to take, classes that are 15, 20 students and multiple classes, and on a dime, go to the next phase. I don't know how you did it.
That was the thing. It was such a quick changeover. It was like, I didn't even have 24 hours, to prepare. And, I've never taught online ever in my life. I'd always kind of shied away from it, because I think from the perspective of, if I don't know it and I'm not excellent at it, I don't want to get involved in it. So I've always done the traditional classroom and the traditional lab. Don't forget, I'm a forensic scientist, so my classes are actually very hands-on based, and I have laboratory classes. Yeah. So straight away, it was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do? We have our traditional lecture classes, of course, that I teach, but it was the lab classes that I found the most difficult to figure out, what am I going to do here? How do I make up for what they're going to miss out on from the practical point of view? But what I have to say is, though, the resilience and adaptability of the students is what blew me away the most. I felt like I was just kind of winging it, and they were just rolling along with it, and they were adapting immediately. And I was like, okay, this seems to be working. We can get this going. We can go with it. So, I mean, for the last 8-9 weeks, we've been having our classes every week online. And then for the laboratory perspective that they're missing out on, so if you imagine my classes, it's called Advanced Criminalistics 1. And essentially I teach a laboratory-based class that is a mock crime, where every week the students come in and process an actual like mock crime that I've created from one particular crime that I was an investigator on years ago. So it's kind of based on a real crime. But they have like 12 different evidence items that they have to process, they have to document, they have to touch, feel, smell even, you know, which is not the fun part. All of my work is biological, so it's all the body fluids, it's all the blood, semen, saliva, urine, feces, all the fun things. And so they're not going to get to handle those. They're not going to get to perform the tests on them. So I had to think quickly of, well, how can I adapt this so that they're still learning something about the handling of evidence, the processing of evidence, and learn something from that whole procedure essentially without physically doing it. And so I essentially created this online method using this platform called Perusal, whereby it's about, you can upload documents and they annotate them and comment on them and they respond to each other's comments. So I chose a couple of cases that I thought highlighted, you know, major flaws and major strengths in investigation. So you guys probably both know the Amanda Knox trial.
Yep, of course, yeah.
The Meredith Ketcher case. I always prefer to refer to it as the Meredith Ketcher case because she was the victim, not Amanda Knox. But so there's great documentation out there and papers published on the flaws, the major things that happened with that case that the CSIs and the forensic scientists did wrong in the lab. And so I uploaded those documents and the students were able to comment on them, read about them, and come up with things that they would have done differently with the knowledge that they do have. And they also learned things that they didn't know, you know. So that was how we adapted the laboratory base. But I've also told them, come hell or high water in the fall, if it's on a Saturday or a Sunday, or even if it's on Christmas Day, I'm getting them into the lab and we are going to finish out that case that we were working on. So
that's great. That is so good. And you know, I tell you what, I'm listening right now. I bet you, Johnny, you know, you want to take this, don't you? You want to take this course, and
I want to take this course so bad. I'm just gonna dye my hair so I look like an 18-year-old college kid.
No, there's gonna be there's room for you. Summer 1, you can sign up right now.
All right, I'm ready.
There you go.
Claire, let me ask. So, how did obviously you did the best you can to take the laboratory and put it into the classroom. Like, how close do you think you could get if this was to go on through the fall to kind of, getting them as close as you can without the hands-on experience? Like, what, I don't need a percentage number, but were you able to kind of replicate it as close as you'd like?
Yeah, we were able to. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't even think of it in the terms of replicating it, because nothing can replicate handling that evidence, taking a photograph of it, turning it over, smelling it, touching it. Nothing can replicate that. But what we found was a new way to learn more material. So learn new things that wouldn't have been included in that class. So if coronavirus had never happened and we had have stayed on campus, we would have finished out the semester as normal like we would have last week, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn all those things about the Amanda Knox trial, Meredith Ketcher case. We also did one on the Jack the Ripper case and new evidence that came to light a few years ago and how there was mishandling of that evidence. So if anything, they gained something from this experience because they've learned more material that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do before. And it's just that when we do get back on campus, they'll then get to finish out that case that they were working on. So
yeah, and I feel like when we get back to campus, it's just going to be, I think when we all just start living our lives again, it's going to feel so good.
It really is.
I wanted to know, and we like to discuss this too, like, how have you been, coping with, being home and dealing with the crisis?
Well, you're catching me on a good day. I'm having a good day. Had this been
sitting by the water.
Had this been recorded 2 days ago when I wasn't having a good day, you might have a different Claire sitting in front of you right now. It's been up and down. I feel like it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. From the immediate kind of jumping online and, working from home and working online, I'd always been one of those people that, no, you have to be in the office to be working. And I'd always regarded my house as my kind of safe sanctuary, that I didn't do work at home. I would spend long hours on campus, in the office, Monday to Friday, even Saturdays and Sundays from time to time. And I was really against people working from home. Now I realize, actually, you can be quite productive.
And let me just say this. I think you've got one of the nicest backgrounds of anybody.
Nice.
Look at that. Johnny, she's got the let's stay in thing there.
She's prepared. She's got it ready.
Claire Glynn, you are crushing it.
But the other side says, let's go on.
The duality of man.
And I didn't even buy this during coronavirus. I've had this for over a year. I got it in Target. It's that magnetic home with chip.
That is amazing. Johnny.
Well, let me kind of follow up on that. So, I mean, one of the other things I was thinking about when we're going to talk to you is, obviously you've built a nice community here in New Haven. You got some people that really care for you and a good set of friends and colleagues, but your family's in Ireland. It's got to just add an extra wrinkle to this whole sort of weird time that you're separated by an ocean. Like, how are you guys handling that?
So that was what I was actually going to talk about next, after Bruce had asked, like, how am I coping? Work-wise and things like that, I'm coping fine. I mean, the workload, I feel like, has doubled, and I'm working longer and harder than ever, but that's fine. I can handle that. I think from like the emotional perspective and the personal perspective, my entire family is across the ocean. They're all in Ireland. I don't have any family here, with the exception of my cousin that's up in Massachusetts, David Glynn, shout out to him. Up in Ayr, Massachusetts, and I see him a couple of times a year. But whenever it first kind of struck, oh, sorry, there's my dog.
we love dogs on Postcards.
Here, yeah.
Dogs are this is a dog friendly YouTube show.
And children.
And children, yes.
Whenever coronavirus first struck, I was quite concerned with, here, I'm going to give him a treat. There you go. I was quite concerned with my family. Both my parents are in their 70s. And, Ireland was being hit just as bad as anywhere else with it. So I was quite concerned at first. All right, Brady, stop.
Brady could say, Brady's welcome to, Brady can chime in anytime.
So I was really concerned about my parents at first, but, what I came to learn was that they were actually handling this much better than everyone else, and they were abiding by the rules. That was the one thing that gave me a lot of peace of mind, was that mom and dad were definitely not leaving the house. They were getting their groceries delivered. Our neighbor down the road, we live in the countryside, so we don't have a neighbor directly beside us. But that neighbor was, dropping off milk and the TV guide for them. So
wow, it's good, Johnny. That was great that you asked about that, and Claire, I'm glad you got to it, because it's funny. Just when I knew we were going to talk to you today, and I remember from some of those United Way meetings or whatever that you would talk about whenever it was a holiday or in the summer, you would go back to Ireland. So it's interesting just talking to you now, how lucky was it that you at least were there right before this all went down?
I'm really, really thankful for that, because as well, like this time of year, May, my parents would usually come over and visit. I would usually request that they would come over at this time, because Dad would do all my yard work to get the yard ready for summer.
Well played.
Yeah, exactly. Oftentimes I'll pay for your flights,
Meet my new friend, John Deere.
So I was actually really sad at the thought of, I know in March I had been, right at the beginning of this, I was texting Dad saying, have you booked flights yet? What's the thoughts? And he's like, I don't know, maybe we should wait and see how this pans out. And thankfully they didn't book flights. But, I really am missing them right now, of having them here and, doing all the things that we would usually do whenever they visit. And then I'd also kind of thought that I would maybe pop home in July, because I have a lot of family birthdays and my parents' wedding anniversary in July, but that's not going to happen now, I don't think either. And there's been a couple of times that when I've, especially over the last month, that when I've thought about it of, am I even going to get home at Christmas? Like, I've never missed a Christmas at home. If you've ever been to Galway, that is the definition of Christmas. It is
Wow.
heaven
Wow.
on earth at Christmas.
You will get there, I believe.
Really hope
Johnny,
so.
why don't you ask the question we always like to close with?
So I mean, we started talking about this whole thing. We kind of had this glass half full, glass half empty, and Bruce being the eternal optimist. We just want to know what you're coming out of this and going through this. What you see as a glass half full? Is it something you see in people, something you see happen, and just a silver lining that's gonna come out of this?
Well, I mean, it was my birthday on May 4th, and I've never had so many people reach out to me and send me gifts and send me flowers and everything. And it was just the fact that I think throughout this whole period, people have really forgotten about all the material things and what's important in terms of how we live our lives. And it's more important to be communicating with each other and to be reaching out. I know I've had friends that I haven't seen in 10 years have WhatsApped me and said, hey, how are you doing over there in America? How are things going? Just wanted to check in with you. So I think it's the community aspect, again, not to repeat myself from earlier, but it's the community aspect that has really strengthened everybody, I think, through this. I see it in my personal life, but also in my work life. I think my bond with my students in the last 8 weeks has been better than ever. Because I was concerned about them and they were concerned about me. And also my bond with like my colleagues, we're texting, we're having Zoom coffee hours, we're, venting and having a good old bitch about things, And it's good to kind of get that out and realize that like everything that you're feeling and experiencing right now is not your own thing. Everybody is experiencing it. Everybody has their own worries.
That's such an amazing point. I think the especially poignant, the thing with I mean, all of it's super poignant, but the thing with the students, Johnny and I have talked about this, the fact that this is like, it's such an amazing thing because it's for the first time, I think, since any of us can remember, we all go through bad things in our lives, but this is this time where we all wake up thinking about the same thing. And I hadn't thought until you just said it, the way that the people that are in your orbit, and for all of us, our students are why we do the things why we do what we do. To go through this with them, they're going to remember this. We all will remember this for the rest of our lives.
We absolutely will. And I mean, I just got a thank you email from a student yesterday about how like supportive I was for her. And I was kind of like, I didn't expect it and I didn't ask for it, but I was kind of like, no, thank you. Like you were my support mechanism. Logging in every Tuesday to meet with you for class was, a structure that I needed it as well, so it is crazy, and it's crap that we're going through this and everyone is experiencing it. But I think the one thing that I take from it is that we're all experiencing it together, and everyone's experiencing it in slightly different ways and sometimes majorly different ways. But ultimately, we're all in it together. And as a community, we can, respond to this effectively then.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Awesome.
So I just want to point out, because we really haven't mentioned it, where Johnny Broker is right now.
Oh, yeah. This is my virtual background.
It's not a virtual background. That's what's amazing.
Did you see the boats coming by?
It's amazing. And I also want to point out, Johnny's not going crazy. Those are actual birds.
Yeah, those things you hear. You want a little
Johnny, tell us about your beautiful locale. Show us around.
One of the luckiest things I have in my life is that I have with my family a little summer cottage on you're looking at the mouth of the Farm River here in East Haven. The middle of this river is actually the line that separates East Haven and Brantford. And forget about those condos. We live in a bunch of summer cottages on the water here. It's a place we get to come to every year, and it's in the words of Seinfeld, God bless Jerry Stiller, you know, serenity now. This is the place I can come and just
Yeah.
sort of relax and enjoy myself. So I'm very, very lucky to have this. It was called Mansfield Grove, and it was started by a bunch of New Haven, mostly Irish American firemen who kind of came out here in the 1920s, 1930s, and eventually bought the piece of land that I'm going to turn you around to, and built a bunch of summer cottages in the 50s. So it's been the same families ever since. So it's a nice little getaway, summer in the Havens, as we like to call it. And this is the mouth of the Farm River, and where I get to spend some of my time. So I thought I'd just bring everybody out here today.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. Claire, you have to know about this. Johnny Broker, we always talk about, you know, we find a lot of people who are better than we are. It's not hard. But Johnny's been amazing because, you know, the house there is, you know, his parents' house, and they have been self-quarantined through this whole thing. And Johnny has been taking care of them. He's been getting their food. He's been there
Unfortunately,
for.
they're not down here. They're still at their apartment in New Haven. This is a place we all have together. I'm trying to encourage them to get down here. So, Mom, when you watch this, time to move down so we can be a little closer. But
well, and I thought that was really poignant too, that you felt like, you know, Johnny was telling me he felt a little guilty that he gets to be there and he really wants his parents to be there with him. So may that happen.
Yeah.
Well, Claire.
Maybe we all get down there.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers, gentlemen.
I didn't fall
Johnny
in the sea.
broke.
I thought my chair was going to topple off.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if he just went into the water to close this out?
Yeah, do it.
Come on, Johnny, take one for the team.
It's still 40 degrees in the water. We're a little ways off from going in there.
All right, you know, be well, stay safe, and stay home.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.